The steering wheel was cold beneath my hands, a stark contrast to the warmth humming through the vents. I had been sitting here for 27 minutes, watching my breath fog the windshield in the pre-dawn dark. The house stood before me, Marcus's new house, a silhouette against a sky that was just beginning to bleed from black into a deep, bruised purple. It was beautiful, just as he had described it on the phone. A modern structure of glass and pale wood, all sharp, clean lines that spoke of a life I was only just beginning to understand. My old sedan, packed to the gills with Tupperware containers of pre-measured spices and the familiar, comforting weight of family heirlooms, felt like a relic from another century parked in its perfect, paved driveway. I had left my own home in the middle of the night, too excited to sleep. The tradition was everything. For 35 years, Christmas Eve had begun with my hands deep in flour, the scent of cinnamon and nutmeg filling my kitchen, the sounds of carols on the radio. I was the architect of our joy, the keeper of the flame. And this year, Marcus's first Christmas in this new house with Tisha, I had envisioned it would be no different. I would be the first to arrive, the cornerstone upon which the day was built. I would show Tisha the secret to my pie crust, the precise temperature for the prime rib, the way to fold the love into the dough. It was my offering, my purpose. The digital clock on the dashboard glowed 5:03 a.m. I could wait no longer. The cold was seeping into the car, and the anticipation was a physical ache. I pushed the car door open, the sound unnaturally loud in the silent, sleeping street. The air was biting, crisp with the promise of snow. I walked to the trunk, my boots crunching on the gravel shoulder, and opened it. There they were. My grandmother's ceramic mixing bowl, the one with the tiny blue flowers. The tin box that held my mother's handwritten recipes, the ink faded to a soft brown. The linen tablecloth, pressed and waiting. I gathered an armful, the familiar shapes a comfort against my chest, and walked toward the front door, my heart thumping a rhythm of happy expectation. I had barely pressed the doorbell, a soft, chime-like sound, when the porch light flicked on. The door opened not with the slow, sleepy reluctance I had anticipated, but quickly, as if someone had been waiting on the other side. Tisha stood there, wrapped in a sleek white robe. Her hair was perfect, not a strand out of place. There was no sign of sleep in her eyes. She offered a smile, but it was a tight, practiced thing that did not reach her eyes. "Eleanor," she said, and her voice was as cool and composed as her appearance. "You are early." I shifted the weight of the bowl and the linen in my arms. "I know, I am sorry to wake you. I could not wait. I brought the sourdough starter for the rolls and the candied oranges. I thought we could get a head start on the—" "Everything is handled," Tisha interrupted, her voice smooth and final. She did not open the door wider. She remained a barrier, a silhouette in the bright doorway. "Truly, Eleanor, Marcus and I have it all under control." I felt a small, cold knot form in my stomach. Under control, but the menu, the traditions. "We are trying some new things this year," she said, and that smile did not waver. It was a placid, impenetrable wall. A more streamlined approach. "Perhaps it would be best if you waited in your car for a while. The house is a mess from the preparations. We are not quite ready for guests." The words landed like a physical blow. "Guests, I am not a guest, I am his mother." The ceramic bowl suddenly felt very heavy in my arms. The cold from outside seemed to penetrate my coat, my skin, and settle deep into my bones. I looked past her into the hallway. It was spotless, not a thing out of place. No evidence of any chaotic preparation. It was a still life of perfection. "I see," I said, and my own voice sounded thin and distant to my ears. "I did not mean to intrude." "You are not intruding," Tisha said, and the lie was so polite, so expertly delivered, that it was more painful than an outright insult. "It is just a bad time, perhaps in an hour or two, when things are more presentable." I could think of nothing else to say. Humiliation, hot and sharp, rose up my neck and flushed my cheeks. I turned away from the door, from her unwavering smile, and walked back to my car. I heard the soft, definitive click of the front door closing behind me. It was the sound of a lock turning. I fumbled with the car door handle, my fingers numb with more than just the cold. I dumped the heirlooms back into the trunk, slamming it shut with a force that echoed in the quiet street. I collapsed into the driver's seat, the warmth inside the car now feeling stifling and suffocating. I watched the house. The light in the hallway went out, and the house returned to its dark, silent vigil. This was not the welcome I had imagined. This was a dismissal, a a chill breach of everything I understood about family. I sat there for what felt like an eternity, the sky lightening from purple to a dull, gray slate. The snow began to fall, delicate flakes that dusted the windshield, obscuring my view. I was about to start the engine and just drive, to flee the scene of this quiet humiliation, when another car turned onto the street. It was a familiar SUV. My sister-in-law, Carol, was driving. I saw her face behind the wheel and in the passenger seat her husband, David. My heart lifted for a fleeting second. They would see my car. They would stop. They would ask what I was doing sitting out here in the cold. They would insist I come inside with them. The family would rally, but their car did not slow. It pulled into the driveway next to mine as if my presence there was the most natural thing in the world. Carol got out carrying a large gift basket and David followed, hefting a cooler. They did not even glance in my direction. They walked straight to the front door, and before Carol could even ring the bell, the door opened. Tisha was there again, and this time her smile was wide and genuine. She embraced Carol, she clapped David on the back. She welcomed them in. The door closed and they were gone. The confusion that had been swirling inside me curdled into something else, something colder and darker. It was not that the house was unprepared for guests. It was unprepared for me. I was not part of the plan. The cornerstone had been removed, and the foundation had not even noticed. An hour passed. The snow fell thicker now. Another car arrived, one of Marcus's cousins, then another. Each time the door opened without hesitation. Each time laughter and warm light spilled out onto the snowy porch before being swallowed again by the closing door. I was a ghost at my own family's feast, invisible behind a curtain of falling snow. I watched the windows of the house, now glowing with golden light. I could see shadows moving behind the glass, figures passing by. I saw Marcus, my son. He walked past a large window, holding a wine glass, laughing at something someone had said. He looked happy. He looked at home. The pain was so profound it was a physical weight on my chest. I had been replaced. My recipes, my heirlooms, my role, it was all obsolete. I was sitting in a cold car, surrounded by the tangible evidence of my own life, watching my family celebrate without me. The isolation was absolute. It was a void. I do not know how long I sat there, paralyzed by hurt, but eventually a new resolve, brittle and sharp, began to form. I would not sit here any longer. I would not be dismissed. I started the car, not to leave, but to move it. I pulled forward out of the driveway and parked directly across the street, under the bare branches of a large oak tree. I turned off the engine. The snow continued to fall, coating the windshield, but I could still see the house clearly. I would wait. I would see what this new, streamlined Christmas looked like. I would see my son, and I would ask him why. The hurt began to harden into a quiet, determined anger. I sat in the growing dark of the car, a spectator to my own unraveling, and I waited for my son to come and find me. The glass of the car window was cold against my temple, a solid, grounding point of reality in a world that had just tilted off its axis. Through that smudged pane, I watched a celebration I was meant to be inside. It was a tableau of my own life, playing out without me. Laughter, the kind that shakes shoulders and makes you wipe your eyes, bloomed in the warm yellow light of my son's home. I could see the silhouette of my sister-in-law, Carol, holding court near the fireplace, her hands fluttering in some animated story. And Jamal, my beautiful Jamal. His face, so like his father's at that age, was alight with a joy that felt like a physical blow to my chest. He was talking to his cousin, his hands shaping a story in the air, completely unaware that his Nana was sitting in the dark, a ghost haunting her own family's feast. Each burst of muffled laughter was a tiny, sharp needle. Each smile I could trace on a familiar face was a twist of the knife. This was not my house, not anymore. The invitation had been explicit, a cheerful text from Marcus himself. "Mom, party starts at 6, cannot wait to see you." But the locked door, the drawn blinds on the front room, the sheer absence of any sign that my arrival was anticipated, it all pointed to a different, colder truth. I was an afterthought. A problem to be managed. A piece of the past that no longer fit into the shiny, new present Marcus had built. The anger had been a slow, cold seep at first, like icy water filling a basement. It started the moment I realized the front door was locked against me. It grew as I peered through windows, seeing the gathered family, the feast laid out on the dining table I had helped Marcus and Sarah pick out a decade ago. But it was a quiet, stunned anger, mixed with a hurt so profound it was difficult to breathe around it. I had retreated to the car, not in defeat, but in a state of shock. I needed to think. I needed to understand, how I had become a stranger on my own son's doorstep. The crunch of gravel broke the silence. I saw Jamal's tall frame coming down the driveway, his brow furrowed with concern. My heart, that traitorous organ, leaped at the sight of him. He was my balm, my joy. He tapped gently on the window. "Nana, are you okay? Your car is running. Dad said you were just running late." The words were innocent, but they landed with the force of a sledgehammer. "Dad said you were just running late." The cold anger in my veins ignited into a hot, clear flame. Marcus had not just excluded me, he had lied about it. He had constructed a narrative for my grandson, a polite fiction to explain my absence, rather than admit the ugly truth that his mother was sitting unwanted in the driveway. I lowered the window. The sounds of the party rushed in, a wave of music and chatter that felt obscene. "Your father told you I was running late, Jamal." He nodded, his kind eyes searching my face. "Yeah, we were starting to get worried. It is not like you to miss your famous potato salad entrance." He tried a smile, but it faltered when he saw the expression I knew was on my face. It was not an expression of sadness. It was an expression of resolve. "I have been here for 25 minutes, Jamal," I said, my voice surprisingly steady. "I found the front door locked. I thought perhaps I had the time wrong, but I see the party is in full swing." The confusion on his face was genuine, and it was the final piece of evidence I needed. He had no part in this. He was just another soul caught in the crossfire of whatever silent war Marcus was waging against me. The hurt transformed, not diminishing, but hardening into something else. A determined need for answers. This was not a time for tears in a cold car. This was a time for a matriarch to demand respect. "Nana, what I do not understand. Come inside, it is freezing out here." He reached for my car door handle. "No, Jamal," I said, my voice low. "You go back inside. I will be there in a moment." He hesitated, his concern deepening. "Are you sure?" "I am sure. Go on. Enjoy your father's party." He looked reluctant but obeyed, walking back toward the house with a glance over his shoulder. I watched him go, my mind clicking into a sharp, cold focus. The weight of 68 years, of raising a son alone after his father passed, of sacrifices made and birthdays celebrated and Christmases cherished, settled on my shoulders not as a burden but as armor. I had earned my place at that table. I had earned the right to walk through that door. I turned off the car engine. The sudden silence was deafening. I smoothed down the front of my best dress, the blue one Jamal said made my eyes sparkle. I checked my reflection in the rearview mirror. The woman who looked back was not a frail, heartbroken grandmother. Her eyes were sharp, her jaw set. She was a leaner Roberts, and she was done waiting in the dark. I opened the car door and stepped out into the chill evening air. Each step on the paved driveway was deliberate, a steady beat like a drum marching me toward a confrontation I had never imagined I would have. I did not go to the front door. I walked around the side of the house, to the sliding glass door that led into the backyard and then the kitchen. I knew this house. I had helped them move in. The door was unlocked. I slid it open silently. The wave of warmth and noise hit me again, but this time I did not flinch. I stepped inside, my heels making a soft click on the tile floor. I stood for a moment in the doorway between the kitchen and the great room, taking in the scene. The party was in full swing. Sarah was by the punch bowl, her laughter cutting off abruptly as she saw me. Her eyes widened and she quickly looked toward Marcus. A conversation near the fireplace died out. Then another. It was like a ripple of silence spreading from where I stood. A stone dropped into their pond of merriment. One by one, heads turned. The music, some modern jazz piece Marcus favored, suddenly seemed too loud in the growing quiet. I saw Carol's face, a mask of startled confusion that quickly tightened into something unreadable. I saw my nephew, Ben, look down at his shoes as if he had just found them fascinating. And then I saw Marcus. He had been leaning against the mantelpiece, a glass of wine in his hand, smiling at something a colleague had said. He felt the change in the room. His smile faded as he followed the gaze of his guest. His eyes met mine across the length of the room. The look on his face was not one of surprise. It was not one of welcome. It was a complex, fleeting flash of emotions, guilt, certainly, but also a flicker of defiance, and then a hard, cold resignation. He had known I would come in eventually. He had perhaps even expected it. The tension in the room was so thick I felt I could reach out and touch it. Every eye was on me. I did not look at any of them except my son. I held his gaze, my own expression neutral, regal, waiting. I would not speak first. I would not explain my presence in my son's house. The silence stretched, becoming uncomfortable, agonizing. The air hummed with unspoken words. Marcus straightened up. He set his wine glass down on the mantel with a deliberate click that echoed in the quiet room. He took a step forward, and his voice, when it came, was carefully controlled, devoid of any warmth, a public address meant for everyone listening. "Mother," he said, "you are here." The way he said it, not "you made it," or "I am glad you are here." Just a flat, cold statement of fact, an accusation. And in that moment, I knew the foundation of our family was not just cracked, it was shattered, and I was standing in the wreckage, waiting for him to explain why. The laughter from the living room was a cruel, distant echo, a sound from a world I was no longer part of. I stood frozen in the dim hallway, the geometric patterns of the new rug seeming to shift and writhe under my feet. Each burst of joy from my grandson felt like a needle pressed into my skin. They were in there, a complete unit, a perfect circle from which I had been surgically removed. The scent of pine and roasting turkey, once the very essence of my Christmas, now smelled like betrayal. I could not stand it for one more second. The weight of the unwrapped gifts in my arms felt like stones. This was not forgetfulness. This was not a simple mistake. This was an execution. My feet carried me forward, past the threshold of the kitchen doorway, where the real heart of the home had always been. But this kitchen was not my kitchen. It was a cold, beautiful stage, and my son and his wife were the lead actors in a play I had not been cast in. Marcus was leaning against the stainless steel refrigerator, a glass of wine in his hand, saying something to Tisha that made her smile a private, knowing smile. That smile shattered the last of my composure. The packages tumbled from my arms onto the stark white counter, a discordant heap of red and green against the minimalist landscape. The room fell silent. The only sound was the frantic thumping of my own heart against my ribs. Why? The word was a whisper, torn from a place deep inside me I did not recognize. It hung in the air between us. Marcus's smile vanished, replaced by a mask of careful neutrality. Tisha's posture straightened, her hands gripping the edge of the countertop. "Mother, what is wrong?" Marcus asked, his voice even too even. He was trying to control the situation, to manage me. I was a problem to be managed. "Why?" I repeated, my voice gaining strength, trembling with a fury that was hot and a pain that was icy cold. "Why have you done this? Why have you erased me from this day? From this house? From my own family?" I gestured wildly toward the living room. "He does not even know who I am. You have kept my own grandson from me." Tisha's eyes met mine, and for the first time I saw not just the polished, capable woman she presented to the world, but a deep, simmering resentment. "Eleanor, that is not true. We have been busy. The move, the holiday, it is a lot." "Do not lie to me." The sound was sharp, a crack in the sterile air of the kitchen. This was deliberate. Every single thing about this day has been deliberate. The new traditions, the new dishes, the new house. You are building a new life and you have left no room for me in it. I want to know why. What have I done that was so terrible you would cut me out on Christmas? Marcus stepped forward, his face pained. "Mother, please, you are being dramatic. Let us just sit down and have dinner." "No," I shot back, my body trembling. "I will not be placated. I will not be dismissed. I am your mother. I deserve an answer. Tisha." I turned my full gaze on her, the architect of this new world. "You have been the driving force behind all of this. I see it now, so you tell me, why?" The pressure in the room was immense. Tisha looked from Marcus's pleading face back to my furious one. Something in her seemed to fracture. The carefully constructed wall of politeness crumbled, and a decade of something bitter and dark poured out from behind it. "You want to know why?" Her voice was low, but it vibrated with a raw, unchecked emotion. "You want to know what you did? It was not one thing, Eleanor. It was 1,000 little cuts, but it started with one. One moment you have probably long forgot." Marcus closed his eyes as if in physical pain. "Tisha, do not." "No, Marcus," she asked. "She wants the truth, she can have it." Tisha's eyes locked with mine, shining with unshed tears and a decade of held-back hurt. "It was before we were engaged. Do you remember that argument you and Marcus had? The big one, when you found out he was serious about me?" I searched my memory, a fog of years and minor disagreements. There had been tensions, of course. What mother does not have concerns? Tisha saw my hesitation and let out a short, bitter laugh. Of course you do not remember, it was just another conversation to you. But to me, it was everything. Marcus came to you happy in love and told you he was going to propose. And you shot him down. You told him he was making a mistake. You said you were concerned about my background, that I came from a different world. You said I was not. What were your exact words, Marcus? You told me later. You said I was not the right fit for this family. The words landed like a physical blow. I took a step backward, my hand flying to my chest. I did not remember saying that. I could not have said that. It was too cruel, too vulgar. That is not true, I whispered, but the protest was weak. A sliver of memory, ugly and sharp, pierced my denial. A heated argument, fear for my son, fear of the unknown. A desire to protect him from a life I could not envision. Had those fears, in a moment of anger, crystallized into such a vile sentence? It is true, Tisha said, her voice gaining strength from the confession. That comment, Alina, it haunted me. It followed me for 10 years. Every time you offered a suggestion about how we should raise Liam, I heard it. Every time you questioned a decision we made, I heard it. Not the right fit. This house, this new life, it was not about erasing you. It was about finally building a home where I could set the boundaries you tried to set against me from the very beginning. It was my fresh start. A place where I finally felt like I was the right fit. The revelation collapsed the world I thought I knew. I looked at my son, and the pain in his eyes confirmed every damning word. He had carried this secret, this wound I had inflicted on the woman he loved, for a decade. I saw my grandson peeking around the corner, his small face scrunched in confusion, and the full, devastating weight of my actions crushed me. I had not just hurt Tisha, I had poisoned the well for my entire family. I had become the kind of woman I thought I despised, judgmental, cold, a mother-in-law from a cliché I never wanted to be. The anger drained from me, leaving behind a hollow, aching shame. The silence in the kitchen was heavier than any sound. It was the silence of a truth too long buried. My voice was a ragged tear in the quiet. I do not remember saying that, but I believe you. I looked at Tisha, truly looked at her, not as the woman who stole my son, but as the woman who had built a life with him, who had given me a grandson. I was afraid. Marcus was all I had. The thought of losing him, it must have made me cruel. I am so terribly sorry. It was not enough. I knew it was not enough. An apology could not unscatter those words, could not reclaim the decade of doubt they had sown. I cannot take it back, I said, the words thick with regret. I wish I could, but I cannot. What I can say is that I was wrong, not just in that moment, but in every moment since when I failed to see the wonderful, strong, loving woman you are. You have built a beautiful family, Tisha. You are the perfect fit for Marcus and for this family. I see that now. I love this family you have made. I love my grandson. And I am deeply, deeply sorry for the pain I caused. I did not ask for forgiveness. The word felt too small, too cheap for the magnitude of what lay broken between us. Tisha stared at me, her expression unreadable. The fury was gone, replaced by a weary exhaustion. Marcus looked from her to me, a silent plea for a miracle that would not come. The timer on the oven beeped, a shrill, mundane sound that shattered the tension. The turkey was ready. We should eat, Tisha said flatly, turning away from me to attend to the oven. We moved to the dining table like ghosts. The food was placed, the wine was poured, but the festive atmosphere was gone. We went through the motions, a pantomime of a holiday meal. The conversation was stilted, polite, and hollow. Liam, sensing the shift, was quiet, his eyes wide as he glanced between the adults. We were together, but the chasm that had opened in the kitchen was vast and dark. I had acknowledged my fault, and Tisha had heard my regret, but the words hung in the air between us, unresolved. The damage was real, the history was long, and as I picked at the perfect food on my plate, I understood with a chilling certainty that an apology was only the beginning. The real question, the one that filled the silence louder than any words, was whether a foundation that had been cracked so long ago could ever truly be repaired, or if we were all just doomed to live in the shadow of my long-forgotten words. And the way Tisha would not quite meet my eyes told me she was asking herself the very same thing.